All right, hello everybody, and welcome back to the next video in the Journey to Master series. It has been a hot minute. I know. I've been gone for a little while, but I've been busy playing in a bunch of tournaments, and I have a lot of games to post on this channel, so just you wait. You'll notice that I'm not actually in my normal recording studio, if you can call it that. It's my basement, but rather I'm actually in Pittsburgh right now because I am about to play in the Pittsburgh Open and on July 22nd. Currently it's the night of the 21st, so I guess wish me luck in that tournament. But this game is actually a game that I played last night at my local chess club, and to give you a little bit of perspective, the last two times we have played, I believe I've been paired as white both times, and both times out of the opening as white in my pet opening, the London system, which is by far the best out of any chess opening that I know, I've gotten a bad position. So for this game, I was determined not to let that happen again, and I prepared. And so that is why this video is going to be called The Power of Preparation. As we go through this game, I will give you kind of standing on what the time situation was, as well as the position, right? And the ideas that I had from my preparation. And actually, this game, one of my friends talked me into playing the line that I did in this game. Um, and so, sorry, there's somebody running by my room, so I heard footsteps, and I was like, what is going on? But anyway, so, yeah, of course, I start with d4, and my opponent plays knight f6, which is so the first the first six moves are the exact same in all three of the games that we have played, where I'm white, right? So d4, knight f6, bishop f4, e6, e3, d5, knight f3, c5, c3, knight c6, knight d2, and bishop to d6. This has all been seen before between the two of us specifically. And in the other two games, what I had played was this move knight to e5, and the line in the first game, I believe, so it went like this, and my opponent played c4, I played b3, and basically just lost control of, like, I just kind of lost his pawn. I played queen b3, and knight a5 is coming very soon. My opponent, I think, played castles first, even like this. And I just ended up not stopping knight a5. The c4 square became a huge weakness. No, it wasn't castles first. He played this move, attacking this, and then I think I just developed normally something like bishop e2, and then he played knight to a5, and I was like, oh, there goes the pawn. Whoops. Right? So I lost that game. Well, I didn't lose that game, but I did not have a good position out of the opening. And I was unhappy about that. In the other game, we got this line, and then here he took, and um, basically just tried to get this knight off of the square that it's on. And I tried to keep it there and ended up losing here as well. I actually did lose this game. Basically, what I need to do here is take and go back after takes, but I did not do that. So, I did not go for that line. Instead, I had prepared something completely different and very nasty. And it all starts after the move bishop to g3. And so this move differs in the fact that queen c7 is like not nearly as useful anymore because there's not a knight on e5, so it doesn't really matter. And so black's just going to continue with a normal move like castling, and here white also just does a normal move, right? Bishop to d3. Neither side's really doing anything interesting yet. But the interesting bit comes after this move b6. And so b6 is actually, if I open this up and look at this position, this is the most played move in this position among masters. Is this move b6. However, whoopsies. After this move b6, you'll notice the top two moves here are queen e2 and e4. Now, queen e2 is the move I was planning to play originally, but this move e4 is recommended by the engine, and it really caught my eye because it is a very aggressive move. It's a very aggressive push, and white is kind of like basically starting an attack with the move e4. That's the idea. And actually, my opponent played directly into the line that I had looked at the most with the computer with this move e4. I basically got to this position. I was like, okay, I can play queen e2. I had done some prep there, but I decided to follow my friend's advice, even though I was adverse to it at first, and I played the move e4. And so here I'm basically just threatening to play e5, forking the bishop and the knight. You don't really want to take on g3 because then the h file opens, and this could become very nasty for black very quickly because this is coming over here as well, or maybe I can move the knight and try and get this way, right? And the h file is really, really nasty to play against as black. So taking on g3 isn't exactly recommended. So my opponent does play the best move here, which is bishop to e7. And so now there's no longer a fork, but I still do play this move e5. And you really don't want to go back to d7 just because it's a passive move, right? And white is basically still just going to play like h4 and h5, just try and play h6 and something like this. And white's going to attack you and say, I have way more space than you, basically. Right? This pawn chain is very strong. Even if this pawn is traded for the c pawn, say, okay, knight d7, I don't know, let's say h4 takes. This pawn can be a target in an endgame, but white really isn't going to let it become an endgame here. White's also going to get control of the c file, which will prove to be very strong as well, right? So after e5, what black does is attacks this bishop. Um, and so I'm okay with letting a bishop trade happen. So dark squared bishop for dark squared bishop, but I don't really want to trade this knight for this bishop. I would dare say that my bishop's better than that knight. However, my bishop doesn't exactly have very many squares to go, which is why white gets to detonate this move. Let me turn this off. Knight to g5, which is a very interesting move. With the idea, okay, you can't really take this anymore because I have bishop takes h7, and after king h8, then I take on g3. I don't care that you can take this because then I'm going to start coming in with my pieces, right? Maybe something just like bishop g6 or bishop all the way back. And when bishop h6 happens, I might just sack, right? The other thing here, okay, bishop h7, king h8. Let's see. Queen h5 might be coming as well, right? Bishop takes g5, maybe queen h5, bishop h6. You kind of get this position where I just play like g4 and g5. And that could be really tough to play against this black as well, since white really just has a really strong grasp on the center and black can't do much. Um, so basically what black does here is they take, and then after takes, they move back to e7. Hi. Um, you don't need to be quiet. I don't care. My father has just entered the room with Pizza Hut. It's perfect. Well, okay, you can't go back to e7 yet because this is checkmate in one, so that's probably not productive for black. So black plays this move g6 first, and then I'm booted back to e2. And now black can win a pawn on d4 because there's two things attacking it and only one thing defending it. But this is still all part of my preparation. After c takes d4, I say, I don't care. I'm going to attack you, and I play h4 with the idea of using this pawn push that black just did, pawn to g6 to stop checkmate. I'm going to use it as a hook with the move h5. So basically, I'm taking advantage of the bishop on g5 and the pawn on g6 to just try and rip open the black king's position. So after the bishop moves, that's exactly what happens. I play this move h5, and after dc3, black is up a pawn, yes, but the attack is going to be very strong. And in fact, my opponent immediately made a bad move here, which was this move queen to c7. In my preparation, I had the following line prepared, which was after d4, then I would take on g6, and after h takes g6, I would castle long. Basically just saying that I'm going to try and play rook h3, rook h1, and just checkmate you, right? Also, the knight is coming to e4 and possibly g5. f4 and f5 can happen as well. This position is very pleasant for white, and the engine says it's plus zero point 0.4 even though you're down a pawn, right? King g7 is basically the only move here. You'll notice if something like dc3, white is immediately much better, right? Because this coming attack is just way too strong. You can't allow that. So king g7, and the idea is king to g7. When I try and hop forward, you play rook h8, right? And so white's down a pawn, but the piece activity is much, much more in white's favor. That is not what happened, however. My opponent did not play d4. He played this move queen to c7, and this is immediately bad because I can just take on g6, and there's no good way to recapture. And if you don't recapture, then I'm just going to play queen to g4, and you'll still get, like, completely demolished, right? So say you capture with the h-pawn with the idea of trying to play king g7, rook h8 again. It doesn't work anymore because there's not a queen on d8. So I'm just going to play queen h4, and then when you play king g7, I'm going to play queen h3 and try and just play queen h6. And there's not really anything you can do to stop me. Say something like knight takes, then I would have check here, and then check, or actually, this one is checkmate. So can't really do that. If you step back, queen h8 is mate. And if you try and move the rook, then queen h7 here, and then this is checkmate. So no real good way to prevent that at this point. So you can't take back with the h-pawn. Also say something like here and knight takes, forking the bishop and the queen. I say I don't care, because after knight takes d3, king f1, you have no checks, your queen is attacked, and mate is threatened two different ways. And so there's just no good way to stop that at all. I think basically the only, no, that doesn't even stop checkmate. The computer finds some way to do it, but it is bishop h4. It plays bishop h4, and then after takes, I guess plays f6 or f5, one of these two moves, with the idea that queen h8 is no longer checkmate, and the queen would then cover h7. But obviously, after this, you just take the queen, and you're just completely winning. So you cannot take with the h-pawn, and after black takes back with the f-pawn, it looks like the attack is stopped, but white has this really devastating move here, and you can pause the video if you want to try and find it. But here it is this nice tactical idea, rook takes h7, with the idea that if you take the rook, it is now checkmate in 3, right? King g7, queen takes g6, and then queen h7 checkmate. So you cannot take the rook. And I am also threatening to just take on g6 and then continue the attack over on the h file. This is what I was saying. This h4, h5, and taking to open the h file ends up being very, very strong. It gives white a really strong attack. Here my opponent tried rook to f5, but here I just took the exchange, played rook h6, attacking the pawn on g6. After king to g7, I played this move bishop to f4, defending the rook, and now my plan is very simple. I'm just going to play queen to e3, queen to g3, and just take on g6. And there's not really all that much that black can really do to stop that plan, right? So he tries to do this to try and bring a rook to h8, but I still just play queen to e3, and if you play rook h8, then I have queen to h3, right? And so, and if you take, then this is going to definitely be bad. Say something, okay, let's play king h7, then I go check here. And then I can do a number of things. I can play this, forcing you back to f7, and then play bishop h6. I can also play bishop h6 right now, and then get this position like so. The other thing I could do is play queen h6, I think. That would be a repetition of moves, maybe. Or just queen takes g6 right now, actually looks really looks pretty good too. Right now I am threatening bishop to h6 checkmate. And so yeah, that attack is too strong. You really can't allow that. Um, and the other idea is after bishop f7 to try and defend this pawn. Now I just have this move e6, attacking the bishop, attacking the queen, and black has to choose to lose one of them. If you try and save the queen, say like this, I just take this, and then once you take, guess what? I'm gonna go and do the same thing and just attack this pawn and win the game. So what my opponent did in the game was he played this move d4, and I just simply continued my plan of playing queen to g3, and here my opponent just resigned. There's really nothing you can do. Bishop f7 is the only move to stop checkmate in one, I believe, right? Like this, but then again, there's this e6 move, and you're gonna lose the queen and the bishop probably. So that whole thing about time, when we got to move 16, so all of this went by right here. When my opponent played queen to c7, my opponent here, so the game was a 90-minute game, which means we both started with 90 minutes on the clock. When my opponent played queen to c7 here, he had about 60 minutes left. I came prepared, however, and in this position, I had 89 minutes and 40 seconds. And I only had to play 7 moves on my own to win this game. My opponent is not weak. He was a 2000, right? 2050. And that is what I'm going to call the power of preparation. And this was really the first time I got to get a taste of what that power is like. And oh my, it was glorious. So, yeah, prepare for your games. It's helpful, I would say. I think that's kind of what I learned from this game was preparation is key. Even if it's only a little bit, anything helps, right? If you can know what your opponent's going to play, especially if you can get a line against it, like I did for this game, that's exactly what you want to do to win a game. By the way, if g5 here to cut the attacking the bishop and cutting the circulation on the rook, then I have queen to h5, threatening queen to g6, and wow, I can't draw arrows. Queen to g6 and rook h8 checkmate. Say, I don't know. And if you try and do this or whatever, then I just do queen g6 mate. There's no good way to defend g6 because you can't play queen here. Um, but yeah, that's the power of preparation. I played 16 moves in 20 seconds. He played 16 moves in 20 minutes. And 7 moves after I was out of preparation, the game ended. So, yeah, I think that's all for this video. It was a little bit shorter than normal, but I hope you were able to learn something. And I will see you all next time. I have plenty of games stacked up to record, so uh, look for another video soon. Hopefully not 2 weeks like this gap was. And yes, of course, I will be continuously uploading shorts, so make sure to look out for those too. Anyway, thank you all for watching, and I'm going to go eat dinner before it is cold. I will see you all next time. Bye.